So I'm not sure how many of you have heard my voice. I've spoken a lot in VCs and stuff on Discord, but I really don't know. I think the last time I put my voice on YouTube was that voice reveal I did in 2021, which we don't talk about. That was not it. But yeah, this is what I sound like. I think I told some people I'm a girl, to which I have to say, you're just a bit too gullible. Anyways, I've spent the past couple days writing 100 pages, so I hope you enjoy. I tried my best to put it together and keep it accurate and true and put as many screenshots as I can. So yeah, just enjoy the video. So to start off, we're going to look at the history of STA. I did a little mini interview, you could say, with GNZ, since he was one of the founders of STA, I believe. So Jip created his own server during the summer of 2022, potentially 2021, though it doesn't really matter, because regardless, in September of 2022, he asked TCA, aka Minmax, aka Graphify, aka... I'm sure he has a fourth name somewhere. Anyways, he asked him to merge his server with his, and this resulted in the server being changed to Jip's and TCA's server. Jip had also asked GNZ to merge his server, but GNZ rejected the offer. However, that wasn't the end for the server's evolution, because once Yab merged the server with Jip's server as well, they adopted the new concept and mission of the server: Unity. Exciting. They wanted basically every creator who had a platform on Discord to merge into the server. They wanted it to basically be a universal hub for all stats creators to merge into, and for every stats viewer to get to just talking. And for some time it worked. It was in fact very successful and had a very decent reputation. However, although I can't tell you exactly when, as I wasn't super active in it, it's been 3 years since the server started, and it's now just in the void, aka archived. I can't tell you much, but I do know from memory and experiences from others that I've heard that during 2023, or by 2023, the server was or had devolved fully into a mess. There was drama multiple times a week, fights were always going on, people were getting banned left and right, the staff was fighting each other. It was just not great. But every server has its issues like that. You know, no server is going to be flawless or smooth sailing always. But USOS had a little special superpower, which was NSFW. If you were ever in USOS or heard anything about it, you probably heard something about the prominence of sex jokes and just weird things being said. I'm not sure if they're still up, but Cajun has a whole series of sus stats community moments, and when I tell you that 50% of the screenshots in those videos were from USOS, I mean it. And about 25% of them were me, but we don't talk about that. So yeah, the server had become pretty much a disaster. Every bit of normalcy and discussion about stats, or even just normal stuff, had basically been overshadowed by sex jokes from a social circle of maybe 5 people. And somehow, some way, those jokes were left free in the server. So with no one properly stopping them, more people joined in, and even when they were warned, they just returned to do it again in a couple of days. And if my assumptions are correct, this resulted in USOS's reputation being an absolute just train wreck. There's basically no saving it at this point. And if I'm presuming correctly, the staff and founders of USOS knew this, and I don't think any specific event caused it, but if I'm guessing correctly, they figured it'd be better to just completely start fresh. New rules, new staff, no pressure to let jokes run free, a fresh reputation, which ultimately resulted in Jip, GNZ, and Minmax, the Avengers of the stats community, creating Statistics Assembly, a fresh new server that had a surprisingly successful launch. So this now brings us to September 2023. I do believe that a lot of what led to STA's creation was the unsavable mess that USOS was, but according to GNZ, one of, if not the main reasons, was the messy perms that USOS had. So maybe they wanted to start fresh, but what really encouraged them to make a new server was that the perms in USOS were messed up. Regardless, Statistics Assembly was made, and it was successful, and it was a new, fresh start. And basically, it was USOS reborn, and they had learned so much from USOS that they could try to not repeat the mistakes again. So now, flash forward to early 2025, STA is still going strong, and in fact has been on the incline for a while. However, that doesn't mean the environment of the server or the staff is healthy at all. Behind the scenes, it was in fact quite the opposite. Although STA was a major improvement from USOS, it still did have a lot of the drama issues, consistent dramas all the time, unfair moderation and strong bias, major arguments and beefs, etc. And who was the head of most of these decisions? Usually, the staff team, because, who else would do that? However, the one who was instructing them, guiding them in a direction of bias and control, our great Jippy. As you can see from my little interview with N4, who was admin in the server for some time around February to March, I believe, Jip supposedly didn't do much stuff himself, but anything anyone else did had to be what he wanted them to do. He directed the admins in a direction of strictness on humor, bias against those he didn't like, such as F10, which you'll see later, his hatred for them just never really went away, and overall, he clearly was trying to foster the server into a dictatorial, soulless, and controlling direction. However, over time, the environment did improve. I hate to say this, but I do think I contributed a bit. I helped to solve some major dramas and lessen bias and bring more fairness and stability into the server. I remember there was an incident where a bunch of people got banned and the chat got locked, and I wrote a bunch of stuff and kind of helped it get fixed. And it wasn't just me by any means. I'm not saying that at all. The team, which consisted of Omar/Visualify, Toaster4, Hexagon, John, and more, all helped actively contribute to a much more stable and healthy environment. Anyways, this didn't go without its hiccups, of course, but overall, the direction STA was heading in was a decent amount better than before. Things were improving. However, that wasn't enough for Jip. The member count wasn't growing rapidly. We were somewhat stagnating, and we weren't even really stagnating, we just weren't growing super fast. We were slowing down in member growth, but we were still gaining new members. We weren't losing people. It just wasn't, going exponentially up. The members were happier, it was a better and more fair environment, everything was overall better. But Jip still insisted that something had to change. He wanted more members and to keep growing at the rate we had been growing at, and if we were unable to continue growing, then in his mind, there was a problem that needed to be solved. And what that led to was Jip becoming even more controlling, more dictatorial, and began his phase of taking things into his own hands. He insisted that the lenient policies and environment we had built were the problem with STA. This resulted in him taking some drastic measures, abolishing verbal warns entirely, which means if you mess up, you're basically done for. No second chances here. Unfairly banning people like Aki. Harsher, stricter, less fun, less humor, less freedom, less chances. All these things, all things in that vein, all became kind of integral parts of STA for a couple days as Jip began obsessing over a non-existent reason as to why STA wasn't growing. He couldn't comprehend that STA was just not growing because it wasn't. It had around 500 to 600 members. There's not infinite people, especially in a small community that's practically on his deathbed. But to Jip, he needed to crack down and exert his power on something in some way. The things we had been slowly working towards, like lenience, fun, fairness, second chances, all that stuff, was somehow slowly, but also very rapidly being killed. So I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but I think N4FTGT2221, whatever his name is, I don't know. Anyways, he began going off at Jip in main chat, and although N4 wasn't staff anymore, he still had experience with Jip and his methods of management. If I remember correctly, N4 was trying his absolute best to try negotiating and communicating with Jip, trying to help him stop making irrational decisions without thinking them through, and Jip didn't listen, and if I remember correctly, the staff began taking N4's side to some extent. Eventually, N4 dropped a huge novel on Jip. What it revealed? The absolute poor and immature management that Jip brought to STA, and, drumroll, the fact that Jip had violated 30 plus of his own rules in his own server. According to the warrant system, Jip should have been permanently banned with no appeal 3 full times. Eventually, the staff team was tired of Jip's dictatorial reign on STA. All the policies he had implemented, the insane and immature things he had done, such as giving ominous, threatening roles to F10 members he didn't like, unfairly banning members, and overall, killing the server one step at a time. Ultimately, me, Omar, Toaster, and Hexagon agreed that we were going to resign from STA unless things changed. We didn't want to partake in an environment like this. We didn't want to build an environment that went directly against what we believed in. We discussed a lot of things that I've just gone over in this GC, all while waiting for Jip to come online. Eventually, he showed up. And the first thing he said, "Shut the fuck." So Jip seems to have an issue where when everything is falling apart, everyone is against him, and the stability of one of the things he's put the most time into is on the brink of collapse. He continues to do the exact things that brought him into this situation in the first place. You see how he does the same thing later, multiple times. The guy also had the audacity to say that we were the ones not having a constructive discussion when the first thing he said in the group chat was "shut the fuck up." Everyone eventually united, telling him to just actually read the mountains of stuff we've said against him and properly respond before saying we're mindlessly hating on him just for the love of the game. At last, Jip gave his grand response. Mind-boggling, am I right? In response to that, everyone basically simultaneously agreed that just taking a step back with the current team and not violating rules anymore is a complete lazy excuse and is insufficient whatsoever. This culminated into a discussion about Jip stepping down. which we all seemed to agree was a good choice. This then led into discussions about who the new owner would be. Hexagon was saying that no one in the team currently had any position to hold ownership of a server that big. However, the conversation continued, with people saying we didn't have to decide now and it just had to be given to someone competent. Eventually, some vouchers and potential candidates for owner began being given out. The discussion ensued onwards, with back and forth between members of the team arguing for who should take the position of owner. Faceless proposed the idea of me getting owner, which was met with some questioning and pure rejection from N4. We eventually began getting somewhere. Jip needs to step down in some form, but people don't feel comfortable with him having technical ownership as he could eventually take things over. I wonder if he'd end up doing that on September 11th, 2025 at approximately 5 a.m. EST. I mean, that'd just be such a crazy coincidence. I don't know who could predict that, or, it's in fact insulting to even say he'd even ponder doing such a thing. I apologize, he never would. Anyways, Faceless continued proposing the idea of John and me, or just me getting owner, to which N4 began trying to establish some sort of imaginary boundary, saying there is no way I get owner. Faceless continued arguing with logic and evidence why I'd be a sufficient owner, to which N4 began responding with a bit of aggression. Faceless, being the lover of me that he is, proceeded to kick N4 out. Honestly, fair enough. He was providing, nothing constructive anyways. N4 was soon after re-added, and he solidified his place in not being part of the discussion when he said I was immature for removing him from the GC. Yes, I'm sorry, N4, for removing you from someone else's group chat. I'll make sure to not do it again. I'll make sure to not possess Faceless's body and kick you from the other side of the world. That's my bad and my mistake, and I really do apologize. Moving on from N4 though, since he's really no longer a part of this until later, the foresight that Faceless had here is genuinely ironic to me. I proposed Jip keeping technical ownership, only to hold it for server security, and Faceless says no because he can do anything. Maybe we should have listened to him. But overall, we had come to a decision of sorts mostly. Me and John as owner, Hexagon and Jip as admin, GNZ and TCA as coders, a newer role, and Omar and Toaster as moderators, along with new mod applications soon. The only thing left to figure out was how we would handle the technical ownership, and in the end, that was the only thing that ended up mattering. As if we hadn't had enough of him, no offense N4, I love you, don't worry. N4 returned with this overdramatic, pretentious message aimed towards me, but I don't know what this guy was on about, bro. Eventually, we came to a full conclusion. Jip would hold the technical ownership of STA, however, he would not participate in anything more than what a moderator does. And that was a promise he made. I soon after made a list of the deal which Jip just had to agree to for everything to take effect. And here it was, the great new plan that we spent so long designing. It's just so good, so great. So in this, you can see that Jip is a moderator of STA. No more, no less. He only holds the technical ownership of STA in the way that John holds technical ownership of Mr. Beast News. It's about safety in case of an incident regarding hacking, archiving, that stuff. He's not an owner of STA. He's just holding the account, and he has no right to choose who has power in STA anymore. This is him stepping down into a position of moderator by his own free will. And he himself said that all staff members have to agree that he reclaimed himself before he could return. Ironic considering what happened later. So here it was, everything I said, Jip being a moderator, not breaching power, him not getting any power and right to do anything beyond a moderator's abilities and permissions, agreed to by Jip himself. The transfer was officially in effect. Me and John were the new owners, Hexagon was admin, GNZ and TCA were coders, Omar, Toaster and Jip were mods. In all practicality, which Jip himself agreed to, he was not owner of STA. He was basically just serving as an alt account to hold STA for security. So in late May 2025, STA was now under the ownership of me and John. Everything that we had been working on building was now able to be fully executed. Lenience, fairness, fun, communication between staff and members, fairness to all members, eradication of bias, blah 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 blah. It was a very positive and improved environment for the summer. For the end of May, June, July, and August, STA was in a mostly good spot. However, with more freedom comes some things people may not like. More humor means annoying and corny humor, or spammy humor. The chat overall became somewhat of a different environment. Freedom brings all types of people, and sometimes that repels other people. You can't warn someone for being annoying. However, just like last time, that wasn't enough for Jip. On September 11th, 2025, which just, you gotta wonder if the timing was on purpose here, at around 5 a.m. EST, Jip stole ownership back of STA, making a long and harshly worded announcement blaming the entire server's issues on me, saying I had been deposed of owner, which Jip claimed he had the power to do as technical owner, which he didn't, as he agreed to only have the abilities of moderator in our agreement, all while reshuffling nearly the entire staff team in STA. And the funniest part, I got no formal notice or message from Jip or any staff at all. The only even partially official notice I got was the announcement that everyone else got. There were no negotiations, no notice, no messages, no compromises, nothing. Even when Jip handed ownership to us, we made sure to frame the announcement as him peacefully stepping down, which in all honesty, it was. But when Jip overthrows the server, he has to frame me as some sort of villain who single-handedly wrecked the entire server. Amazing. However, thanks to Cajun's outstanding spy abilities, it turns out this plan had been in the making for a while, under the name Operation Fallrot. Now I will get into the original proposition I sent to Jip 2 to 3 days before the coup took effect. Me, John, Omar, Toaster, and Hexagon all had the sneaking suspicion that Jip was going to eventually pull something sneaky like this. We all just saw it on the way he spoke and the things he said, trying to get admin back, shit-talking us behind our back, and even admitting that the only thing stopping him from cooing was potential backlash, as shown in these screenshots here. However, how do you get technical ownership off of him? It was a difficult situation, as we wanted to go about this morally, unlike someone else. But we also couldn't wait forever, since something like this was basically inevitable. Eventually, I managed to find a screenshot of Jip saying this. This was no longer him planning or talking about things he wanted. He said the server would be his, and even our predictions weren't as severe as what was actually going on, which was Operation Fallrot. Since none of us could really figure out how to go about handling the situation, I figured to go with what my gut told me. It wasn't a huge plan, not even really a plan at all, more just communicating or proposing an idea to him. So I yapped out a huge essay to Jip, sent it to John, which he responded with his full approval and agreement, and then I made a group chat with me, John, and Jip, and I sent the entire thing over. Basically what it said was that we do not trust him with technical ownership. He's displayed tyrannical and controlling behavior, along with a plethora of behaviors that show the server is not safe in his hands. Therefore, under agreement of me and John, technical ownership should be passed to me. This could be a peaceful transition where no screenshots of him saying he wanted to coup and overthrow the server went out, and therefore his reputation would stay safe, where an announcement wouldn't even be needed because it was behind the scenes, and where Jip could make his own SMP server to manage however he wants, and he could let us manage STA without wanting to overthrow it, which is literally the deal he agreed to in May. And then I sent the message and waited. And waited, and then waited, and waited, and waited, and waited. A day later, I went to sleep, hoping Jip would respond in the morning, and that me and John would be able to take negotiations to their next step. What I woke up to was basically another dimension, Earth 2, branch timeline, whatever you want to call it. I got no response from Jip. Messages from my friends telling me what happened. Basically, I don't even know what happened. It was just not the last thing I expected. So Jip had broken the agreement, his promise, our trust, everything. Between me and all staff, he did not respond to my negotiation or proposition whatsoever. He did not inform me whatsoever about my deposition from ownership. He did not tell anyone officially or formally or even at all. I literally woke up with nothing. I went from owner not to admin, not moderator, not contributor, not anything. I was a member. He'd completely breached his agreement and blatantly robbed ownership from us. And not just me. Hexagon had been demoted, Omar was demoted, Toaster was demoted. He completely wiped the slate of STA clean without getting permission, negotiating, letting us know, or communicating at all. That is the definition of what a dictator is. And you know what he did with the staff team from here? He replaced them with arguably the worst options possible. GNZ, who had been permanently banned with no appeal not even a month ago. And it's ironic because Jip even strongly contributed to GNZ being banned. I remember Jip and TCA called me for like 30 minutes straight telling me in an extremely serious conversation how what GNZ had done meant he had to be banned. And now he had admin, Hunting Stats 378, who had a history of spamming brain rot, lacking moderation and even management capabilities, and overall had a sour and very poor reputation. Had somehow also become admin. No offense to him though, it's just that some people aren't built for management, I guess. Honestly, I don't even know how his capabilities are, but jumping straight to admin definitely isn't the move for anyone. Funny enough, right after all this happened, which I woke up to, I saw that people are having a full conversation in Russian in STA. I had to quite literally tell Hunting for him to even notice and do something about it. Under Jip's new staff team, the online, and I mean online admin, had to be informed by the demoted non-staff previous owner of a blatant rule violation for him to do something about it. Funny enough, he kept John as owner. For some reason, Jip seems to have a soft spot for John, even though me and John were discussed on every single decision we made, discussed on every topic, every policy, every staff member, literally everything. In Jip's lengthy and harsh announcement, where he framed him breaching power and stealing the server as a standard server change, I was framed as the villain of Statistics Assembly, who had single-handedly dismantled the server, its reputation, its stability, and its environment. So let's go over each and every point and debunk each of them and respond to them, whatever. So he starts off by saying that I was deposed from owner, which if you do a 5-second Google search, you can see means to forcefully overthrow, overturn, topple, and coup. Don't think Jip is a dictator yet? Then we've only just scratched the surface, because it gets even worse much worse, exponentially worse, every synonym for worse from here. I also need to mention that his claim that as technical owner of Statistics Assembly is blatantly false. He agreed to not breach power, he agreed to have the power of a moderator, and a moderator only. It is a blatant lie. He lied about a deal that the general public wasn't aware of, so he wouldn't look like a blatant dictator who overthrew and broke the trust of his entire staff team, so he could get the server he wanted back just because he didn't like what the people who he put in charge had done with it. Starts off by saying that Solar, along with several other mods, no, not John, no name dropping any other staff other than me. Clearly, I'm the problem here. In his initial message, he also referred to his failures to properly manage STA, not like I consulted staff or John on 90% of the decisions and actions I made, not like Jip needs to paint one single person he doesn't like as the villain, as to turn the general public against me so he could justify him overthrowing the server. No, he'd never do that. Right. Anyways, according to Jip, I've apparently been the sole contributor to announcements being littered, community news being filled with unimportant messages, and negatively impacting our server imagery and impression from other servers. I'm going to tackle each and every point he's presented here. Any littering of server announcements, such as the Vote Wills incident, if you will, was not a sole decision or force done by me. I'm not sure if you forgot, but John quite literally also took part in the Vote Wills being chained in server announcements, me, all other staff, and John, we did it, all of us. I have no idea what he's talking about when he says community news. I barely even knew that channel existed, and I have nothing to do with it. I've checked it about two times in the time I've been in STA, so I really have no idea what he's talking about at all, where he got it from. It is complete bullshit to me to mention me here when you're making an announcement this large in front of 700 people. To be that inaccurate, it's just ironic for someone talking about unprofessionalism to be doing that. Negatively impacting our server imagery and impression from other servers. Negatively impacting our server imagery and impression from other servers. First off, our server, you saw the screenshots. STA isn't his server anymore, and I don't mean to say that in some insulting or controlling way. He himself handed it over. He holds on to technical ownership in case of hacking. It's his server in one way and one way only, and that is not a way he's able to say our server when referring to STA. He's the one who gave STA to me and John. The server imagery that's being affected is me and John's, not his. Not to mention that the server imagery and reputation was already shit. Other servers like MBN and YTV already saw STA as a shithole, and want to know something funny? That reputation, that was very bad, was fostered under Jip's ownership. Whoa! He goes on to say that apparently I told complaining members to leave. I'm not sure when exactly I did this, but he brings up an example of GNZ. GNZ was probably continuously complaining about the environment, to which I probably told him if he doesn't like it, he should leave, which to me seems pretty reasonable. If you don't like a server, then why are you in it? Why are you spending your time mindlessly and constantly complaining in main chat instead of taking part in any conversation going on? It's pretty reasonable to tell him to leave. It's kind of just advice. Now here comes the real thing that's just blatantly wrong. Before I get into that though, he also said I told complaining members, plural. From my memory, the only person I told was GNZ, so he's quite literally pulling stuff out of his ass just to make me look bad. Blatantly lying. Now, onto the stuff that just, damn. He tells me that telling people to leave is not how you deal with server problems. That it's not solving the problem, it's instead trying to solve the person who brought it up. This is coming from the person who, the exact same day, literally banned 7 people who were protesting and calling him out for his bullshit in main chat. Me telling GNZ to leave because he's not satisfied with the server is Kim Jong-un behavior, but him banning 7 people who aren't satisfied with the server is perfectly justifiable and necessary. That is the most blatant display of hypocrisy I've ever seen. It is genuinely unimaginable to me how he wrote that and then proceeded to not only do the same thing, but literally worse. I only told GNZ that he should leave if he doesn't like it. I never banned him or forced him to do anything. He violated his own logic that he used to defend his overthrowing of the server. Then the next line. Are you Kim Jong-un? He's literally comparing me to a tyrannical dictator who is a genuinely horrific human being who has ruined the lives of millions of people. You were saying that me, not any of the staff, not John, not anyone, me, I am Kim Jong-un because I told GNZ to leave. And somehow it doesn't end there. This is all coming from the person who has quite literally sent pictures of historical or real dictators in history with pictures of his profile picture of him or himself in the same message, joking about himself being a real historical dictator. I can't even get a screenshot of it because STA is archived as of now, but ask Toaster or any other staff member, they can vouch that he did do this, and if you really need me to, I'm sure I can find something. But regardless, the person who literally called himself a real specific historical dictator called me Kim Jong-un because I told one person to leave the server. That is the person who several people who I won't mention the name of, but you know who you are. That is the person who you defended and fought for in overthrowing an entire 700-member server and breaking the promise and deal that was made. So I hope you're happy with your decision. Solar and several mods. Once again, it is all my fault. Paint me as a villain even more. Say I purposefully tanked the server to ruin it. Paint me as someone who only believes in chaos and nothing else. That's justifiable. That's the behavior of a kind of normal human being. That's awesome. I love it. Driving activity via chaos, even if this was true, that does not justify breaking a promise, breaking the trust of someone who I thought was at least even 20% my friend, and overthrowing the entire server without communicating a single bit beforehand. The Vote Wills incident, some people played Among Us, and Omar kept saying to vote Wills in a goofy voice. So me, John, and all others said vote Wills in server announcements. Did we ping anyone? No. Could it be easily deleted? Yes. Will it be replaced by an actual important announcement the next day? Yes, because it's just a joke and it doesn't actually affect anything. Something that's small does not justify overthrowing the entire server whatsoever. The My Mother Ate Fries incident, once again, there were about 2 other people who were against this incident when it happened. Everyone kept sending the My Mother Ate Fries gif and saying My Mother Ate Fries. TCA got so irritated by it that he unmerged from STA and left the server. If you're going to pin TCA's decision on us, then that is utterly childish and the absolute pinnacle of avoiding accountability and the absolute pinnacle of shifting blame to fit your narrative. Also, I've mentioned several times how Jip needs to paint me and others in a bad light or create some sort of narrative in order to justify his coup because the general public isn't aware of this stuff enough to be able to call it out. Or they don't care enough, which is perfectly fair and valid. However, that doesn't change the fact that is absolutely morally fucked and unacceptable on Jip's end. Anyways, back to what I was saying, you see here how he executes that perfectly. He claims that when other members don't find our humor or gifs funny, that the members and staff present toxicity beyond his imagination. Maybe it's his imagination because the toxicity and unimaginable behavior against people who don't find it funny doesn't exist. Also, your beloved Prince John also took part in the My Mother Ate Fries incident, so I have no idea what you're on about when you pin all of this on me. Also, you literally claim that humor is subjective here, while also saying that our sense of humor contributed to us being rightfully overthrown. What? Are you stupid? Did you proofread a single sentence you wrote in this thing? It's genuinely baffling how many hypocritical and just blatantly illogical claims come from Jip in this, and we're only on like 0.2 of like the 8,000 things he said over the course of 2 days. Also, when did we force it? The My Mother Ate Fries incident lasted for an hour, maybe 2 at most. If you don't like it, just don't look at the server until it's over. It's really so simple. We also never forced it. Do you see us banning people when they disagree with us? No. Do you see Jip banning people when they disagree with him? Yes. I'll take some blame and say that Hexagon and others did tinker a bit with 1 or 2 people's nicknames, maybe a channel's name, the server's name for like 1 minute. I can't remember exactly which or what. However, why not call out Hexagon by name? Why am I to blame for something I didn't do and didn't start? And Hexagon literally apologized and said he'd stop very soon after the incident took place. And changing names, it is so easily fixable and doesn't affect anything in the long term. And even if it did, just communicate and speak to your staff instead of overthrowing them. It is genuinely so immature and unprofessional and baffling how insane Jip handled this because he started it. It is immature and unprofessional how he not only went about this but even considered and actually did it in the first place. I have no idea what kind of logic this is. 3 people who haven't been active in months, who barely have spent enough time looking at chat to even be aware of what the environment actually is, get to determine if the server is overthrown or not. And with them not being active, they form an inaccurate opinion on the staff team because they don't see how we respond to drama, how we moderate, how we handle rule violations, what changes and adjustments we made over time, etc. Also, who are Kadzilla, Dario, and IDK stats to say that STA is a worse environment or justifiable of being overthrown? No offense to any of the few, but Kadzilla has a history of hating on the entire community as a whole and is generally pessimistic. I can't blame him for that, but it's not the type of attitude you want when making a big decision like this. Dario is unimaginably inactive, as is IDK stats. Not to mention that ratings are most definitely not a reliable source, nor do they serve as evidence for our management being poor. There will always be people not rating properly, people biased on both sides, and if you really want to go purely by ratings, then I'm sure the ratings were miles worse when Jip was owner fully before May 2025. Not to mention how small the drop is, 8.18 to 7.65. That's barely over half of a number. Using a 0.53 drop in ratings as proof that our management is warranting of overthrowing the server is blatant absurdity. The fact that Jip wasn't even aware of the fact that people like Omar and Toaster were both consistently talking about wanting to do something about the state the chat was in says exactly why he's not fit for owner. He's in an echo chamber of what he wants and is unwilling to actually put the effort in to actually do what's right, reasonable, or that of a true, actual, good leader. He says that John was aware of what was going on, using it as evidence that he's worthy of being owner. once again putting him on a pedestal, unfairly putting all blame onto us and none on John. Either we all barely did anything, or we were all liable for ruining the server. I also have genuinely no idea what he's talking about at the end here. Is constant drama what you call fun and entertaining? Because that's what you had under your leadership. Spamming you, shitposting brain rot? I don't even know what this guy's saying anymore. You posting brain rot? Gossiping of IRL issues? I can't even respond to this because I don't know what he's talking about anymore. To me, it seems like he's just pulling stuff out of his ass to make the list of reasons our leadership is poor, more beefy and longer. Shh! Stop! And therefore more liable and justifiable. Once again, double standards by Solar, not Hexagon, who is admin and also represents the server, not John, who agreed with me on nearly everything, and no name dropping on moderators, nothing. Extremely fair. So let's get into what he's talking about here. So when STA reached its 2-year anniversary, Jip took the liberty upon himself to ping all of server announcements, which is basically the slightly lesser version of an everyone ping. Don't forget the deal that was made. That'd be like if Omar or Toaster Fork didn't ask any higher staff or mention it to anyone else before writing a full important announcement about the legacy of the server when he pinged nearly the entire active population of STA. That would seem a bit odd, no? Like a breach of power? Because that's what Jip did. Also, my issue with what he did is that he didn't mention it to us first, didn't ask the higher staff, didn't even send us the message first, didn't get permission to ping an absurd number of people, and that Toaster was the one to realize that STA reached his 2-year anniversary and mentioned it in staff chat. And since Jip made the announcement after, it's reasonable to assume he did it because of what Toaster said. I genuinely can't tell you if I'd have an issue or not with Jip making the announcement and sending it because I never got the chance to even say yes, no, or maybe. Also, if what Jip wrote in bold, and the fact that he even wrote that in bold doesn't scream dictator, then I don't know what does. Sure, you created the concept. I agree with that. That's why I believe that it could be justifiable for you to make the announcement, but you still handed ownership of the server over, which is why you still need to ask. You are a moderator, no more, no less. And you agreed to that. Therefore, you have to ask the owners that you appointed before making a decision or action like this, and you have no position as a moderator to remove either of us or make an announcement shitting on us, especially me. Also, let it to its glory, I genuinely believe Jip has some sort of savior and dictator complex. The dude might actually need a bit of therapy. Also, the accusation that these mods lack the ability to avoid drama and in fact encourage it and want it, blatantly untrue. Drama was noticeably less prominent after me and John became owner. Drama was the face of STA while Jip was owner, as it was when Jip was owner of USOS. This is a blatantly untrue accusation that has no basis in reality, nor any evidence presented. What he's saying here is also blatantly untrue. We had the most cohesive staff team that worked with each other on every choice. We had disagreements and we worked through them. And of course, we're not perfect. No one is. No staff team is. No owner is. No admin is. No moderator is. Also, this is genuinely a lie. I don't know if he's deluded himself into believing that we were rooting for him, but did you forget that the entire reason he was practically pushed out of ownership was because when he was owner, his management policies were so genuinely poor, lackluster, and blatantly bad that everyone turned on him. Literally me, Hexagon, Omar, and Toaster already resigned because of his ownership. To claim we were rooting for him and power glazing him is a blatant lie. Another lie that he's blasted in front of everyone's faces with no evidence whatsoever. This is also a completely different situation from the Vote Wills incident. Completely different. What we did there was clog announcements. Sure annoying, sure unprofessional. Can it be easily deleted? Yes. Did it ping anyone? No. No one was pinged. Everyone got permission from both owners and both owners partook in it. Also didn't involve the legacy of the server or a big milestone. They are two completely different situations. I have also no idea what he's talking about when he glazed John for wanting announcements to be clean, because I don't know if Jip has a functioning pair of eyes, but John literally said Vote Wills and announcements too. Like he did the exact same thing. During Solar's management over these months, are we dead ass? Me and John worked together on everything, and he can vouch for that too. You're acting like I was the sole owner. Merging isn't my specialty. It's a confusing topic that I was never present for the creation or rise of, yet I was still involved in some discussion of it. Is it my fault entirely that I didn't completely pioneer the maintenance of it constantly? No. It's a pathetic and childish attempt at pinning random shit on me to once again paint me as a villain, while John gets away scathe-free and the other staff are shit on. Also, merging was literally not abandoned or dysfunctional. We quite literally got a new merger less than a week before. We had discussed how to adjust merging requirements several times, and I vividly remember being part of several discussions on how to adjust how the view and subscriber requirements would play into a more nuanced and open list of merging policies that focuses on the passion and quality of creators. That all sounds like fucking PR bullshit, but it's true, so whatever. So saying during my management that merging became dysfunctional and blaming me for anything negative and anything at all regarding merging is blatantly untrue, has zero evidence, and is once again another lie from Jip. Conclusion says that I am unprofessional, immoral, and lack the ability to keep STA organized. No, not John. No, not saying anything good I did, or communicating with me about this first. No, no, and no. But just blame me and shit on me in front of about 700 people. Sure, let's do that. And of course he says some other mods, not like he didn't end up demoting every moderator anyways, and not like he shit on every mod anyways, and not like he didn't name drop anyone except me in this conclusion. Awesome, right? Yeah. Also, what is he on about here? His ego is genuinely out of this world. He believes that he's the nexus of STA, right? That's why he says STA was known as the light of the stats community. Are you a deity? STA's reputation was and has been dog shit for months, if not years. Don't lie to yourself. Also, I have no idea who he's quoting here, but whoever it is clearly not a reliable, as they blatantly used a slur in their criticism. That's great, Jip. Even if they're shitting on the state of STA is in, and therefore are on your side, you're still siding with someone and using evidence from someone who drops slurs like it's nothing in a professional statement. Nice one. Also, the leadership of Solar has led to a total downfall of STA both internally and externally, once again blaming me for everything. I genuinely wonder if this guy has some personal beef with me or something. Like, did I bully him in kindergarten? Did I kill your family on accident? Feels like every time I do something, I'm being stared down by Jip like Prime Gihan or fucking Spider-Man and Sandman. Like, what did I do? What did I do? I will be returning to ownership. He literally fucking said he won't and can't. He agreed to that. He said, I will not return to owner unless all staff agree that I've reclaimed myself or something like that. It is genuinely lying. There is no excuse for this behavior on any moral scale whatsoever. It's pathetic, immature, unbelievable, immoral, and blatantly childish. Also, he clearly has an ego here. The new staff team led by me will bring STA to new heights, and glory to STA. The staff team can't even take credit. It always has come back him. The staff team is led by him. All their decisions, no, it's still him somehow. Anyways, now that we've gone over his announcements, we can get back to Project Fallrot. Apparently, this plan had been in the making for actual days, around a full week of planning to steal the server. He says we were the ones who didn't negotiate or communicate. He secretly planned to rob the server behind our backs and didn't even have the liberty to tell me I was demoted in my messages. Pathetic. Before continuing, I'd like to address the potential claim that we overthrew Jip and May. Those are two entirely different situations and not comparable in the slightest. First off, we had no power in May. In Jip's case, he forcibly demoted us without going through any proper system or even letting us know. In our case, we peacefully resigned. We never forcibly stole anything. At the end of the day, Jip agreed to everything. No one was stopping him from saying no. Secondly, Jip referred to what he did as a coup and overthrowing several times. He is clearly fully aware of what he's doing, and I don't think it's about revenge or anything. He knows it's a coup, and he's proud of it. Thirdly, we never overthrew the server. We never stole the server from him. We simply said that with the state Jip's taking the server in, we are going to leave unless something changes in ownership. If Jip didn't want to give ownership away, no one was forcing him to. But we also are free-willed individuals who have the power to make our own choices. And if that choice is not wanting to be in a server that is turning into an exponentially negative environment, there is nothing wrong with resigning from our position. What there is something wrong with is forcibly stealing back something that you gave away and made a promise to not take back. Also, it is very different too, because Jip had broken 30 of his own rules. Is kind of a different situation because according to his own rules he should have been permanently banned, so I think if anything he was let off the hook, even being able to hold on to anything, even membership. So before diving into Operation Fallrot, I hate to delay it again, but it's important to go over this. We can see bits and pieces of Jip wanting to overthrow the server bleed through even without Fallrot being leaked. For example, in the SMP chat of STA, Jip was saying that he must dictate again. He went on to say something in Chinese, which roughly translates to take back a country. This aligns with him referring to this as a coup and my loss of owner as a deposition. He then proceeded to humorously say that he can't stop gooning to me and John. What am I even supposed to say here, bro? I do think it could show that he's kind of deep in his ego so much that he's barely even taking his own plans to rob a server from his friends seriously. He's joking about it. He's perfectly fine with it to the point where he's able to joke about it. It's a normal thing to him. This type of behavior is what made me and the entire staff team so distrusting of Jip having technical ownership, which ultimately led to that big message I made that I mentioned earlier. Jip uses us accusing him of trying to steal the server back as evidence that we didn't trust him and didn't value him as a staff member, and proceeded to do the exact thing we feared, quite literally proving our point. So at last, we can get into it. Well, what is Project Fallrot? Plans for Project Fallrot seem to have begun around early September, officially beginning as a project around September 4th or so. As seen in these screenshots, Jip was in the early stages of planning, mysteriously alluding to the ideas he had, being mysterious and not mentioning who or what it was about. It also shows how he manipulates people onto his side. He doesn't explain the full situation and slowly gets them curious and interested. He gets to paint the picture however he wants, as he did in the announcement. It also is important to mention that Smash only joined the GC for Operation Fallrot 30 minutes before the coup took place. The fact it was this disorganized and rushed says so much. I think Jip can actually properly explain everything and justify himself and then allow Smash to make a fully independent, unbiased decision in 30 minutes? No. Smash has also expressed much remorse, regret, and fully apologized for partaking in the coup and siding with Jip, and I'll get into the rest of that all later, along with some other stuff. Anyways, this is what Operation Fallrot is. He had the plan to overthrow the server already, as shown in this exchange between Jip and Smash and these screenshots I showed earlier. Operation Fallrot was his plan to genuinely and blatantly silence us if we opposed in any way, shape, or form. If all goes wrong and riots appear, ban all previous mods, Solar, and John, but only if John expresses disagreement, still keeping the bias he has towards John. He then goes on to say that this is our server, which is untrue. He willingly gave it away with his own free will. He wrote, "I agree." He used his fingers and his mind to write, "I agree." He then says that it's not F10's colony. I don't know what he's on about there. F10 hasn't caused issues in STA in so long. Me and Faceless are both staff in STA, and the other F10 members barely speak there. N4's playtoy, like, I don't even know what he's saying anymore. It's like N4 is some sexual symbol to him or something. Maybe it's because of N4 and Jip's disagreements in the past, who knows. But he ends it off by saying it's not a place for toxicity. Ironic that he's doing arguably the most toxic thing possible to end toxicity. Also, his solution to us not releasing our hands from STA is cutting us off. Isn't that quite literally what he called me Kim Jong-un for doing to GNZ? And I only told GNZ to leave. In fact, more so recommended it advice. I never forced him to, nor did I plan to forcibly remove him. So here's Operation Fallrot. Last resort, only used when desperately needed, not recommended. Anyways, it goes without saying that this plan is absolutely insane. The highest form of suppression, censorship, and is the final stage of Jip going into pure dictator mode. If any of you ever trust him with any position of power beyond maybe moderator ever in the future, anything that allows him to control things or make decisions or pivot his way to having power over an entire server project, then I genuinely just best of luck. I hope it somehow works out. Now, the most insane part of Operation Fallrot, if it could somehow get even crazier, is something that my close friend and also retired stats creator, Rexta, also known as Mr. Rexta, or Rexta HD, pointed out. So you can see here, I just mentioned Operation Fallrot, and he said, that's the case name the Germans used when invading France in 1940. Bro, what? Hi. Really? Hey. Case read, also Fallrot. I knew I recognized it. Jip is using a Nazi codename for his little server takeover. You heard that right. Operation Fallrot is the name of the German army's advancement on France in the 1940s. I am being 100% serious here. Jip named his plan on suppressing our speech after the operation where the literal Nazis began trying to take over France in the 1940s. You read this all completely right. Jip named Operation Fallrot after a project led by Adolf Hitler. I do have to thank Rexter for pointing this out. He knows so much about history, and I don't think anyone would have noticed for a long time, if ever, if it weren't for him. Of course, anyone besides Jip himself, since this was obviously intentional. With the fact that Operation Fallrot is bordering on being a neo-Nazi Discord group chat out of the way, we can return to the sequence timeline of events, since we also know what Operation Fallrot is. After me and the others woke up to a demotion, we, as most would, tried our best to negotiate with Jip. So now, I'll go over that entire GC and anything else important, debunk everything he said, then we can proceed to what happened afterwards. An Operation Fallrot took effect and nearly everyone was banned, which ultimately spiraled into the unstoppable death of STA. So I'm going to do what I did before. I'm just going to kind of respond to each and everything here. Of course, all dissatisfied members cheer when you overthrow it. That's like saying all racist people cheered during the Holocaust, therefore it was justifiable. Sure, an extreme comparison, but just because people who agree with you would like you doing something drastic or immoral doesn't mean it's actual proof that that decision is justifiable. People who are dissatisfied, whether reasonably or unreasonably, aren't going to get involved in a full-on war. They're going to see that stuff is changing, so they'll be happy. Or they'll just be happy that the server is being overthrown. It is a biased perspective that can apply to both sides, therefore either side can use that as proof. I already went over all this stuff earlier. Along with this, people are allowed to have fun and post whatever they want. If it truly becomes too much, we stop them. We prefer a positive and fair environment where people can enjoy themselves than one where the moment you disagree, you get shot in the head. We were very accepting of criticism, and we were always discussing ways to improve and adjust the server, how we handled situations and humor, etc. Like I've said so many times, we communicate on everything. This is completely and blatantly false. It is me that worked days and weeks to lay the foundations of statistics assembly. I would not let it all go to waste under this incompetent management. Then why did you give it away in the first place? Not to mention the ego here. No credit to the people who helped with STA. The entire concept of STA was uniting multiple different communities and creators, and there were even multiple owners and founders, and he comes in here and takes all the credit for everything. Also, once again, the reputation of STA and other servers isn't reliable. It's always been shit, and if they don't spend time in the server, they won't be able to formulate a proper opinion on it. Therefore, it is also not substantial proof. You agreed to be able to end the deal if the safety of the server was compromised, not if it was under the threat of being deviated from its intended course. That is bullshit, and you know it, and everyone who supports you in this knows that as well. STA used to be a server featuring its high degree of stability. I know you're a big fan of lying, Jip, but bro, like damn, you don't gotta lie to yourself too. STA and USOS have always been the center of drama. It's never had a great reputation, and it always has the most drama of any stat server. Also, he's claiming here that we created cancerous growth. growth. I thought he just said we did the opposite. I thought he just said we contributed to 50 people stopping chatting the past 5 months. Are we contributing to growth or not? It can't be both. Also, I explained this all already earlier. It was about the pings, a moderator not asking before pinging, and the fact everyone was fine with a small message being chained, and the 2-year anniversary message being a big thing. Blah blah blah. Go back if you want to see that. He claims that whenever he tries expressing dissatisfaction or wanting to help out with STA, he says that we said, OMG gang, he's trying to take over again. Well, would you look who was fucking right. You literally just proved our point. Maybe we would have let you actually contribute to decisions if you hadn't threatened multiple times to steal the server, then actually do it. Don't forget that you are a mod, Jip. Such sweet words. It's literally true. You fucking agreed to it. You agreed to it. It is literally that simple. It is a blatant, objective, true fact. And there is nothing wrong with restating it if you breach power or suggest that you may want to breach power. And here we go with the John Glaze again. He literally only told people to stop chatting in announcements like once or twice, and he also took part in the Vote Wheels incident. Like I said 50 times! I do not question his abilities and strategies in terms of server management. Ask John. In fact, I'm going to ask you, John, right now to comment on this video. If you're in the premiere, say it in the premiere and the comments. I don't care. Did me and you discuss practically every single decision and choice and topic we made regarding moderation, management, chat, merging, rules, policies, literally everything? Yes or no? Either me and John are both tyrannical clones of Kim Jong-un, or we are both amazing Discord server strategists. It cannot be both. And fix the shithole you have made. Well, that's not insulting at all. This is very professional. Notice how when we have an owner transfership from Jip to me and John, we're so peaceful about it and make a nice announcement. We discussed and come to an agreement and compromise. Yet when Jip does it, he paints me as fucking stats Hitler and then tells me I've turned the server into a shithole in his conclusion paragraph. That's fantastic, Jip. I love it. He also then started adding people not relevant to the situation whatsoever. TCA, maybe? Hunting? How is he involved at all? You don't see me adding people just because they agree with me. The group chat was made for people to negotiate STA. Hunting has no place in that. I made a huge yap session to respond to everything Jip said. I covered all his points, such as how him justifying it with everyone supposedly supporting it being inaccurate, how his claims about the state of STA were false and untrue and inaccurate, how he was being biased towards me and other mods, how we all predicted he'd take over, so he only proved us right, and so on. Feel free to pause and read if you'd like, but I've pretty much said everything already in this video. Jip continued adding people who had no place in the discussion or negotiations. He went on to say, if you fucking remove other members, that stands for my side, and this is not a fair argument. Dario is a merger who practically never speaks in STA. Hunting was a merger who wasn't staff until Jip took over. Neither of them were involved in the original deal in May, and neither have any relevancy in this discussion whatsoever. Jip's argument that they have a place in this group chat because they support him is bullshit. Can I just add as many people as I want because they agree with me? No, they need to have a reason to be here. Something that actually connects them to the situation, not just them agreeing with you because you don't have the balls to actually defend yourself. Hexagon went on to respond to some points, which I do strongly agree with, and can vouch for the things he said. I also responded to Jip, saying that it's a staff discussion, therefore it should only include people who were present and involved during the owner transition. He then said, and guess what? They are staff now. How is that relevant at all? Great, you made them staff forcibly after the entire situation we're talking about. Does that make them part of the argument now? No! He then went on to accuse me of apparently isolating him and said, I know your tricks. Apparently, I'm so smart that I don't even know my own tricks. He then said that he apparently didn't say that towards me. I don't know why I drew 5 circles over a screenshot instead of just saying you responded to me, but I was basically saying you responded to me like I just said, then continued speaking, so it was implied it was to me. Hexagon also made some very good points here. The server was in fact less drama-filled than you may expect. The chat activity is also not for anyone to be blamed except for the current members that behave in it. And also you blame one singular person for everything happens, while John, me, just sit back without issue. The moderation was lesser because the rule breakers were lesser. The server isn't also chaotic and barely moderated either. The ping was never this serious, and Solar moved on after 10 minutes. Just could have asked. We were right about you trying to take over. You just proved our point like that by doing what we said. The double standards you mentioned against you, you also did the double standards for him. You implied that John didn't need to take any accountability while both owners equally took decisions and always made sure to check. None of the things except the actions taken is supposed to be accounted for at all. This is just a course of blaming and forcing someone to take accountability for something they were not responsible for. The server isn't neither in a bad or good state, and also why use surveys as a reason. You've already realized that the surveys aren't reliable as they consistently have some sore losers disliking the server and giving a low rating without any feedback or reason why they do it. Staff team is also apparently disorganized. Elaborating further would maybe just help. Hunting began responding first, responding to the first sentence I said and nothing else. Amazing supporter you have, Jip. Not a personal attack against Hunting, but this is not how you argue at all. Also, group chats have a limit of 10 members. The factor evidence is something that can only hold 10 people says enough about why your data is lopsided and inaccurate. Hexagon also made some very good points here, and Hunting, instead of responding to me, said I stopped the slop to Hexagon, referring to him sending brain rot a lot, which only stopped maybe a month ago at most, I may add. He then said he'd respond to the rest. Let's get into the rest of the group chat. I added Faceless, who is also a moderator who got demoted in STA, because if Jip can add people, then I can too. At least my person is relevant and involved here. I then showed the screenshots from the deal that occurred that shows Jip agreeing to pass ownership over and to not take it back unless under extreme circumstances. The irony of saying I'm a man of my words is insane. Blatant lie. And here's the agreement he officially agreed to. Jip may return to any role in the future but has no guarantee. He literally agreed we have the power over whether he returns or not. Technical ownership to archive and keep the server safe. It speaks for itself. He used technical ownership to do anything but that. He said here he wanted to keep technical ownership for safety of the server in case of deletion or destruction. Us managing the server a different way you don't like isn't destruction nor deletion. Jip is using that as an excuse to blatantly steal it. If we turn the server into like a Nazi fan club, then fair enough. If we deleted every channel, then fair enough. But not this, not at all. We continue presenting our points with no response, although in all fairness, Jip may have gone to sleep by this point. However, we still had hunting here. John also popped in while at school to say that this was a poor decision and that promises should be kept. I also pointed out that GNZ was only unbanned under the circumstance that he wouldn't be able to return as staff. When Jip overthrew the server, he went straight to admin without consulting anyone or giving him a trial at all. While waiting for Hunting or Jip to respond, we discussed amongst ourselves in a separate group chat. I spoke with my close friend Faceless, who as I mentioned earlier was also demoted during the overthrowing. Me and him had the idea of making a new server, and we presented it to the others. I spoke about how it most likely would fail or not do as well, but if Jip was going to hold on to a server and never give technical ownership away, in my opinion, it was better to have our own server than to have that. So we started throwing some ideas around. We had Central of Statistics from Hexagon, Statistics Hub from Faceless, Statistics Hangout from Omar, and then finally Omar locked in and gave us Statistics Horizon. This one kind of just clicked instantly. We basically settled on that one and I sent the invite for the server. Omar and Hexagon did the heavy lifting for server building and I definitely helped too. Trust me. We returned to the GC sometime later with Hunting's grand response, though he did say he had more with more screenshots. However, he never sent it. Ever. Anyways, to respond to Hunting now, his main point here seems to be about a user named Bluebee-like who was very NSFW in chat. He was curious as to how it was never moderated. However, it quite literally was. It was warned multiple times if I remember correctly, at least once. And I know it was some time ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago. And the incident in the screenshot, a full month ago. That is not evidence at all, nor is it relevant to anything we've been discussing here. He also claimed that we tried to silence GNZ, ironic to be on the side of the person who ended up literally banning people who disagreed with him, which is the definition of silencing, and no one ever silenced GNZ. We advised him to leave if he hated the server so much. No one forced him to do anything. I responded by saying he was warned for that, which I believe he was. He was warned for at least one of those times, I know that. Most likely multiple, but I can't tell you since I was booted from STA and the server is now archived. I also said that, if I wasn't in chat at the time, what was I supposed to do? Why pin this all on me? I also made a point here about how John just acknowledging it gets him in the clear, even though he didn't do anything until weeks after. They act like John was above us and supposed to give us instructions on what to do, and if we don't carry it out, we failed. Me and John were on the same level, and he can agree on that. I also really tried hammering in the fact that this was a full month ago. 1 month ago, the Earth had rotated 31 times since the screenshot that Hunting sent took place. Hunting added on to say that a decreasing count in new members was becoming prominent, and then included what I presume is screenshots of Jip saying how we could work on it. Once again, if you're going to blame me for not doing anything or not taking Jip's advice, then blame John too. Me and him both saw the message. Also, there's a cap to how many members a server can get. There's not infinite people. Like I said earlier, the stats community is dying, if not basically dead. 600 to 700 members is still wild, even if it's growing much slower. And even then, that doesn't excuse what Jip did. It was blatantly immoral, and he was still a liar who breaks promises. Not to mention that Jip referred to John's ability to manage MBN as evidence for him keeping owner earlier. MBN has stagnated so hard, if I remember correctly, so that kills Jip's argument there. MBN's new member count has dropped very hard from what I know. Does that mean John is a bad owner? No. Hunting then proceeds to say that the promise is a question for Jip, which is very valid, and in fact, I agree. Which is why it'd be lovely to get a response from him, although it appeared Jip was asleep. So we waited another hour, and John finally returned from school. He gave his initial response, which broke the character limit twice. John brings a good point in the beginning. Jip has yet to mention which murders celebrated, and once again, from what I remember of STA and the behind-the-scenes channels of STA, the ratings did indeed improve greatly, and even if they didn't, that doesn't mean the server is dead forever, nor does it justify what Jip did. John speaks about the nuance when it comes to handling situations, which Jip doesn't seem to understand. If the management is poor, there are ways to handle it, such as what we did with Jip in May. There are functions that exist, such as staff warns, and reasons why taking action in those ways may not be the best idea. John understands the nuance and complexity of a situation like this, but when Jip handles it, he just demotes everyone and steals the server. I'm not here to throw accusations, but it's as if he's unable or unwilling to actually handle a difficult or challenging situation. John also makes another good point here. You can't completely outlaw people sending brain rot. People have free will and freedom of speech. Being annoying isn't a rule. Spamming is surely something that could be worked on though. It'd be lovely if Jip asked about that and actually put time and effort into communicating about that instead of stealing the server. John said some other stuff about how the reputation of STA has been consistently horrible. Why is Cajun calling me, bro? Alright, anyways. Then he went on to talk about G and Z and the fact that the first new merger was someone who makes Pornhub statistics content. Okay, the clapping wasn't, never mind. That wasn't intentional. John proceeded to add on to his response with another 2 character limit breaking messages. Once again, he's very well spoken. I agree with practically everything he said. So if you'd like to read it, just pause. There's no point in recapping it when it's right here and I have nothing to add on. To summarize it, John is defending fun and freedom, and how when other people become inactive, like Smash, new people become more active, like Erica and N4. We also spoke about how the launch of Jip's new STA had gone insanely poorly, blatant rule violations, someone who makes porn stats videos merging, the worst options as admin, no offense to anyone made as staff, and probably more. I mentioned the point about how staff warrants were completely skipped as a concept when it came to me or anyone else's demotion, and the rest here I'm sure you can read. Me and John mentioned how immature and just unkind it is to ping an entire server and frame me as a supervillain while shitting on me and my abilities to manage and help in the server, which John gets much more into later. I mean, I really don't even know what to say anymore. It's just the same stuff over and over again. Even while seeing everything begin to fall, Jip continues to say that he will bring STA to glory as if this is an actual country, as if he didn't make a promise, as if he's some sort of king. It's insane. John Beck read the group chat and responded to Hunting's points. You genuinely cannot keep exponentially growing forever. That is physically not possible, and to hold us to that standard is insane and unreasonable. Also, you just gotta love Hunting's responses here. One single sentence responding to one message, then a question mark. If Hunting wants to talk about summer, then how about how stuff has been extra bad lately and extra inactive because people are in school again. Moderators are busy, admins are busy, owners are busy, we are all busy. We can't dedicate nearly as much time to moderation or building a server. That's just unreasonable, and that applies to members and activity as well. Hexagon is also very right here at the end, and I strongly agree. A lack of activity does not justify something this drastic, dramatic, or morally bankrupt. Also, funny thing here, Jip made someone part of staff who made a joke about Heil Jipler, referring to Jip as Adolf Hitler after Jip forcibly stole the server. And you know what's funnier? John, who still is part of staff, who Jip glazed several times, has Jewish genetics and is partially part of the Jewish religion or culture or both or something like that. Yeah, I'm sure you can ask him for more. He mentioned it in one of the screenshots, but yeah. Meanwhile, Cajun had somehow managed to get mod in STA, so we decided to start up a poll. Glory to STA, they said. I will save STA, he said. Out of 13 votes, 8 said it was poor changes, and 5 said they had a mix of both. Not a single person loved the changes, which really foreshadows what ended up happening later. With no response from Jip, no more responses from Hunting, no progress, and clearly a sentiment from the opposing side that they didn't want things to change and were happy with their choices, we decided to begin spreading the news. Protests, if you will, began in STA, and it wasn't even us anymore. The reputation of the server began toppling. Main chat was a disaster. Everyone was talking about the situation and what Jip had done, and then finally, the man himself showed up. Jip didn't respond to anything, but instead responded in main chat to Azai/Chloe renouncing her position. What he said? You think I'm a tyrant, so be it. If you blindly believe their words, ignoring what I've accomplished for STA, then I don't know what to say. No response to any of the mountains of essays we sent, no response in any group chat, no response to the staff he demoted, and worst of all, he is doubling down on what he did. No remorse, no regret, no desire to change, absolutely nothing. He's just as he was the night before. One thing I should say here is that Masahiro Sakura, or whatever the fuck his name is someone named N4, who I mentioned earlier. So we're just gonna refer to him as N4, so just keep in mind, this is N4. N4 used to be admin in STA, as I said earlier, and here's the paragraph he wrote on his experience, which I believe I showed earlier, so you can look at that if you'd like. Anyways, now that you remember who N4 is, just keep track of him. So we can see here that N4 is trying to negotiate and defend Jip per se. He wants Jip to speak to him personally and tried his best to defend Jip's actions. He tried to remain neutral, but it seemed he was definitely leaning towards Jip, or at least leaning against us. Also, I don't have screenshots and can't get them because of the state STA is in, archived, but what I basically responded to N4 with was saying that even if Jip started it, he still passed it to me and John, and that me and John still put months of effort, time, and thought into it. I did work on it, whether he wants to believe that or not, and he agreed that it now belonged to me and John. He had no right to take it back and destroy the progress and work me and John both put into it. Same as before, I don't have a screenshot of my response, but what I basically said is that it's ironic that the 3 people who founded STA, who everyone seems to agree shouldn't have a place in staff, one of which was just banned like 2 weeks ago because of the only dramas in STA lately, according to N4. Also, no offense to Minmax of course, but his drama was just him overreacting. And even if you say these dramas are both our fault, 2 dramas over 2 months is an average of 1 drama per month. That number, according to N4, is astonishing compared to what STA would deal with previously before me and John were owners. Cajun, who was, I still can't believe how, but yeah, he got moderator, encouraged Jip to negotiate and actually fix stuff. You'll notice a tendency of when someone offers help or advice to Jip, he ignores it or doubles down on what he did. You notice this with N4, Cajun, and more. N4 was basically begging Jip to just respond to him by this point, but Jip continued to ignore and just randomly respond to certain people, doubling down on everything he had done, as I just said he would end up doing. Instead of responding or tackling people's concerns, Jip decided to just lock the entire chat. The best part was that it didn't even work. N4 just threw his message into main chat since Jip's friend requests were off, and if Jip was going to lock chat, he probably was going to lose his chance to speak to him. N4 was giving him mountains of grace, about 10 chances to fix what he had done. What Jip did in response? Nothing. No response, no thank you, no disagreements or disputes with what N4 said. Was blatantly ignored. The only person with a brain who was on his side got ignored. It's like Jip wanted everything to crumble. The ironic part is that Jip could have saved it if he tried, but he just kept digging himself into a deeper hole. He then proceeded to accuse me of being a dictator, saying that if he's a tyrant and a dictator, then I am one too. This is not only completely illogical, but would only prove himself wrong. If me and his behavior are so similar, hence why he's comparing me to him in the tyrant analogy, then how is one of us a dictator and the other the savior of the server? How are we polar opposites if you're arguing that we're both apparently tyrants and dictators? You're saying our behaviors are similar. Don't forget that Jip is also the person who joked about being a dictator while comparing me to Kim Jong-un, and now here he is doing it again, calling me a tyrant and a dictator. With locking chat not working because of Dino, Jip began timing people out for 24 hours. From what we know, it was only previous staff. Pure suppression, the early stages of Operation Fallrot. Jip finally gave us somewhat of a grand response and announcements. Wow, so amazing. Even N4 expected it to be longer. Prappy Mag, if that's his name, was a mistake, you admit? Great, that doesn't mean we were wrong about it. The fact we didn't have someone who made videos about porn merge with us in 2 months and you did in under 5 hours still says a lot. That is a completely fair point. He did refute the statement Heil Jipler, but I do still think it's a bit odd how his newly appointed staff who had no trial said Heil Jipler within like 5 hours. It is unfair to pinpoint that on Jip though, so I will say that he's mostly right here. Somewhat of a fair point, he still chose very poor options, and the irony is that he could have had a functioning staff team if he didn't demote practically everyone who cared about the server. Same applies here, but Hunting did not help at all with controlling the situation. Not an insult at him, but Hunting genuinely just wasn't involved in controlling the situation. Wow, I feel so much better after having an entire novel written insulting me. Not sure what the 7th and last one was about, but the fact he doesn't even care enough to explain what the mistake was says a lot. John finally had his bombshell essay ready. 13,000 characters criticizing Jip for practically every single thing he had done today. He spent nearly 2 hours writing it and was finally ready to send it into the negotiation group chat. And here we go with Jip doubling down even when everything is in shambles. Kajin, his only active mod, who actually was trying to help the situation and his reputation, was asking just why he was even doubling down. And Jip continued to glorify himself and say, I am not doubling down, I'm holding my belief, I am not bending. That's literally the definition of doubling down. Even with the mountain of negotiation opportunities and criticisms we gave to him, he continued just going on this rampage of seeing himself as some sort of king who can do no wrong. Even while main chat was falling apart with protests, even while his own staff was going against him, he just kept going. At last, he appeared in the negotiation group chat, and we started with the most insane sentence that I've read all year. The reason I believe I had to overthrow the server. Like, what? He just blatantly admitted it. He's saying, like, it's a normal little thing he did. Oh, just another Monday. Yeah, I just robbed the server. Yeah, oh, sorry, guys. I just felt like I had to. My bad. Now let's get into his points. He says he did not feel respected as a mod or as a person in the server, that we just shit on him when he tries to do anything in the server, that he tries to cooperate, and that he doesn't want to ban or censor people or anything. The deal we made said that Jip may return to any role in the future, but has no guarantee. To say it's justifiable to overthrow the server because we kindly rejected him becoming admin with reason is absurd, and we responded to him just as much as we responded to anyone else. Maybe a bit extra for good reason, I'd say. Clearly, we were right about rejecting his cooperation because all of our concerns and suspicions of him wanting to steal the server were correct. Now, this is the part I just cannot believe. He says we tried to frame him and cause more arguments in STA. Frame him! The only things we did were show screenshots and tell everyone the things he'd done. The only person who was framed was me. Like, what? This guy wrote 2 to 3 messages and announced them because that's how many things went above the character limit, presumably because they were separated, all telling the entire server how I single-handedly tore the server apart from the ground up and how I have zero capability of managing things and how my contributions were all negative. That is framing because me and so many others can vouch for how much of it is untrue. He used his power as technical owner to frame me as basically a supervillain who ruined STA. That is framing, not what we did, not at all. We protested against someone who did frame us, not the other way around. He responds to only one of the points I made in response, saying that server announcements is not 600 people. Sure, it's not. It's still basically in the entire active population of the server, and what I said is basically rhetorical. Even if it was less people, he still shut on me to a ton of people and practically framed me. He doesn't respond to the fact he did, but the fact it just wasn't as many people he did in front of. Omar begins saying that the immaturity of STA isn't our fault, as it's very difficult to suppress freedom of speech. Jip begins basically blaming us for that, saying that the members' behavior is our faults, even though the rules we have state people have freedom and are allowed to make jokes and act however they want within reason. Not to mention that if Jip had such a huge problem with his behavior, he could have done his job as a moderator or technical owner if he wants to think that's somehow higher in some way and actually warn people, but he doesn't. With people like Blue, they get punished. People genuinely spam, they get punished. It's not a fucking free-for-all. Jip then responds to me saying that it's not his feelings were hurt, but because he's apparently unable to help out with STA. So he's justified in overthrowing it because it was thrown off its course. If he truly wants to help out so badly, fucking moderate the chat you hate so much. Talk to us about the state of STAs instead of shit-talking us in private group chats with operations to steal the server named after Nazi projects. And like I said, if he doesn't want us managing STA, then why did he agree to it in the first place? If he doesn't like it, then it is unfortunately too bad because he agreed to what is going on right now. Not to mention how much he's exaggerated. I'm not even sure what he's saying here. Is he saying that we left the deal or broke the deal first? If so, then that is the biggest piece of bullshit I've ever seen. Tell me what sentence in the agreement we broke. Tell me. Message me or tell me in the comments. I would love to hear. Me and a few other mergers were getting increasingly disappointed at your shit. What are you, my mom? And even then, like Omar said, talk to us instead of creating a whole coup against the server. It is genuinely immature and shows the traits of Jip that prove he's unfit for owner. Like we all said. The traits of him which are exactly why we're so fearful of him having owner or any more power than what he already had. This is just baffling to me. When I try to talk to you, it always just ends up in Jip wants to take back owner. It literally was true. We were right. We pinpointed exactly what you wanted to do. You cannot criticize us for that because we were literally right. You trying to talk to us turned into us accusing you of that because we literally were right. You were so blatantly obvious with wanting to overthrow the server that you only decreased your chances of getting it. It is completely illogical and blatantly stupid logic. No offense to Jip with that one. He proceeds to stop even responding to our points. He says he was glad to prove us right. Do I even need to say anything? If you were glad and happy about us predicting you would steal owner, then that means you were planning or at least wishing to do it for a long time. Therefore, we were right and your point here is non-existent. What I say here summarizes pretty much how I felt here. How am I supposed to even argue this properly when even confronted with the fact you have done something morally wrong, you say it's okay? It became genuinely impossible to argue with him, and he doubled down on that relatively soon. He claims he approached us in a civil manner before this. He never approached us about overthrowing the server. His logic is that because people he tried helping out like 3 times, and because he asked for admin to which we either spoke to him about it like normal people or kindly and logically rejected him, that overthrowing the server was somehow the next logical step and justifiable. He genuinely basically blackmailed us there, but without ever even giving us the blackmail. He's telling us that basically if we don't give him admin, the inevitable outcome was him overthrowing and stealing the server, and he's perfectly fine with that and in fact seemingly proud of it. It is genuinely bordering on the logical principles of blackmail. Alas, John dropped his huge message here, 13,000 characters addressing the entire situation, criticizing Jip and his choices, debunking everything Jip had said, and much, much, much more. There is way too much. I mean, as he said in the first sentence, he spent 1.5 to 2 hours writing this essay. So if you'd like, I'm going to leave the screenshots on the screen for maybe a minute or like 30 seconds, and you can pause and read it if you'd like. However, I do recommend you do that after the premiere, because, you don't want to get stuck behind. John made a huge point here about how horrible it was to paint a teenager who is vulnerable to mental health issues as the bad guy of the server with no nuance or real criticism. The unfairness of how I was solely blamed and the inaccuracy of what I had done wrong for the server. This is when stuff about sensitive topics such as self-inflicted harm and suicide may take place, so if you'd like to skip about a minute or so, feel free to. You never know what someone is going through, and doing something like this to them is going to be mentally harmful and draining to them. It's going to make their self-worth feel very much shattered, and the worst part is how Jip pinged practically the entire server when doing this. How do you think it felt when I woke up to the entire active population of STA falsely seeing me as a bad, annoying person with no good way to defend myself? And even if Jip wasn't completely aware of the details of my mental issues, it is common sense that every teenager has mental health issues. All teenagers are vulnerable to insecurity and self-hatred. All teenagers are sensitive. All teenagers are unstable and vulnerable. To falsely paint someone this age in that light shows the lack of awareness and disregard for a vulnerable teenager's mental health that Jip has. He's willing to disregard my mental health and potentially destroy it in order to help persuade and manipulate people into thinking he's the hero. And his status he had for the whole day is evidence of that. Would you betray one to save 1,000? Jip, in fact, would. Since Jip never responded to the YAP sessions we threw at him before or while he went to sleep, I made sure to tell him to actually read all of it and respond to it. I wasn't going to let John have written something for 2 full hours just for it to amount to nothing. Jip, after all, said he was going to go negotiate with John and I, right? Meanwhile, STA chat was still in chaos. TCA was saying that Toaster had been a mod abuser in the past. Meanwhile, Jip and potentially others, such as Smash, Stereo, Energy, and Z, were the ones muting people for speaking out against Jip. Speaking out and protesting isn't purposefully causing chaos. We were fighting for ourselves and using freedom of speech. GNZ also displayed why he's not fit for admin. And no offense to him, but it's just the truth. No more arguments. Let's have peace instead. You can also see here how people began turning against Jip. Solar was right. Jip can't be owner. So here's when everything went wrong. Jip, who said multiple times that he was going to negotiate with me and John, didn't respond at all to our messages. Not a single bit of them. 13,000 characters that John spent 2 hours writing. The negotiations Jip said he would do in front of everyone in order to help repair his reputation and stop chaos and protests going on. A 13,000 character message that mentioned someone cutting themselves, which I may add once again shows the disregard for mental health, all ignored. Not a single ounce of sympathy, not a single sentence, not a single response in any way, shape, or form. Instead, Jip pinged Dario. For what reason? Well, Operation Fallrot had taken effect. Turns out a poll had taken place in the Operation Fallrot group chat, and 4 out of 7 members had voted yes. Instead of responding to any of this, Operation Fallrot took effect. And it happened. Toaster Fork was banned. And then it continued. And 4, the only person who even tried defending Jip was banned. John, who was still owner, was banned. I was then banned. Omar was then banned. Hexagon was also banned. And then Faceless was banned. All previous staff, along with N4, were all banned. Jip had completely gone down the dictator route. He had nearly 100 chances to save this, or at least try to save it. He even said he'd negotiate, and he does this instead. Genuinely unbelievable. Pure shock from us. We still thought Jip had some humanity or sense of just logic and care in him. It was now that we all realized the type of person Jip was. A pure dictator. I'm not sure what Jip expected, but banning us only made things worse. People who had the info began spreading the news. Not sure what their username was, but someone named 68 should be a meme began freaking out over the erratic behavior Jip was showing. Chloe was spreading the screenshots of people being banned. Even Rain, who had beef with STA not even like 2 weeks ago, was shocked. Hissed a merger with STA somehow pinged everyone, not server announcements, everyone, telling them to use their voices. People were turning on Jip. His attempt at PR and damage control were only digging him in a deeper hole, like I said he'd do. No response, no nothing, instant ban. And in response to all of this, do you want to know what Jip said? In all caps, I quote, "The leeches are purged. Hail the server." I don't even have words. I'm genuinely curious if this guy has something wrong with him at this point. I genuinely hope he gets some form of help, because how do you see your server slowly collapse because of your own actions and still continue glorifying yourself and your own behavior? Random people began showing up in the chat due to the @everyone ping, and what they arrived to? People saying Jip was banning people, Jip and others yelling glory to STA in all caps and bolded. It was pure insanity. This is when we officially decided to make the new server. It already existed and we had worked on some of it, but we really went to town on it from here. We rapidly threw the bots together, made the channels, and got ready to launch the server that night. STA really began collapsing from here. News spread to the other sides of the community of what was going on. People like Matthews and Zayden were now finding out and agreeing that Jip is a pure dictator. News spread to MBN, with people like AJ and Entropy now finding out. Obvious Path, who maintained a neutral stance, even was messaging Jip, telling him to not delete the server. Even someone neutral was aware how dire the situation could end up being. And even with all of this going on, Jip continued glorifying himself and doubling down on the choices he made. When everyone was pinged and people from YTB began showing up, Jip continued doing this even more, saying that the righteous side has prevailed. The reputation of STA continued collapsing, and Jip continued to double down and ignore it. Lean Stats, who was still a merger of STA, was telling Jip how he messed up because the majority of people were calling him a dictator. No true response. Instead, Jip says, "We will see." When someone tells him it's a dictatorship, he says, "This is a revolution. This is a liberation." When he is the one who literally overthrew the server. No matter what you tell him, no matter how bad things get, Jip continues to think he's somehow making the right choice, that somehow he's right, that somehow we're the bad guys. And that behavior, it only made things even worse. If Jip wanted to play the revolution and liberation game, then we were very much willing to play along with him. Some way, somehow, one of us or someone we know had access to the webhooks. What they did, they pinged everyone telling them what he had done. Some of you may say we're just as bad as Jip for that, but that is entirely incorrect. Jip had unrightfully stripped us of not just our power, but our right to even speak in the server. He was falsely accusing us of single-handedly ruining the server. He had done something horrible and was turning the server into a dictatorship. And even then, it's not a revolution. We are literally just telling people what's going on because we were forcibly silenced and suppressed. We also saw here that apparently an incorrect sentiment about us was being spread. We were not banned because we broke a ton of rules. We were banned because Jip had a secret group chat named after the Nazis with a plan to ban us if we refuted his actions. It wasn't just STA's reputation that was falling anymore. The entire state and environment of the server. Everyone was now aware of what Jip was doing. Lean, arguably one of the most active and liked mergers, was highly considering unmerging from the server. News was spreading about what Jip had done rapidly. There was no way to paint this as something good anymore. Even Even Bull123, someone who was never involved with drama and barely active in the community outside of his personal social circles, said that the whole situation just seems all sorts of terrible. Carnation, who was N4 on an alt account since the main was banned, laid it out honestly and harshly for Jip. N4, practically the only person trying to actually help Jip, had been banned. N4 said, "Congrats Jip, you tanked your reputation and server in a couple hours. You are a dumb fucking idiot for that, you know. It was not hard to fix, yet you let it happen. Let this day be a reminder that you fucked your entire 2-year-long work over trivial bullshit." Perhaps the language and insults were a bit strong, but even then, he is entirely right. Jip had killed his server's reputation, his own reputation, all himself single-handedly in just a couple of hours. Even with every opportunity to fix it, he took none and only dug everything into a deeper hole. He had done this to himself. With STA officially in the dumps, we publicized the link to our new server, the Statistics Horizon. People began rapidly pouring in. With STA basically dead and were drowning in drama, and with STA and Jip's reputation on his deathbed, people were looking for somewhere new to stay, and the Statistics Horizon became that place. Soon after, around that time, nearly 30 minutes after we were originally banned, me and John were unbanned from STA. Thanks to Cajun spying, we can see that it most likely was only to attempt saving face. Even G&Z, who was on Jip's side, said at this point, most likely referring to the absolutely dreadful state STA was in due to their falling reputation. And even with all of that, Jip still just says, fine. Even with Cajun trying so hard to do damage control and help Jip, it's still so incredibly difficult and ultimately fails. What Celix said basically summarizes how I feel. I'm not going back until they change as people. Don't even accept them, they show their true colors now. And you won't see me agree with Matthews a lot, but he's right. It's clear they did it because they were forced to. If this had succeeded, they wouldn't have unbanned us. If we hadn't fought so hard and spread the truth about them, resulting in their reputation tanking, they wouldn't have unbanned us. They are only doing it to save their reputation. And meanwhile, the Statistics Horizon was doing absolutely amazingly. Why go back to somewhere we'd been muted for a week? Somewhere that Jip is still going to be lingering over our shoulders, ready to blow our brains out if we go against him on even just one decision. The sentiment continued. Even with Jip and others attempting to save their reputation, they destroyed themselves. It was too late. Lean had emerged. No one was returning. Jip had solidified the type of person he was. And as Statistical Horizon, rose up rapidly in activity, STA began dying out, with no clear way to save it. Jip had basically killed his own server. His 2 years of hard work, practically 3 if you include USOS. He had destroyed it to the point of no return in just about 24 hours. Now, if Jip's handling of the server's reputation and downfall was this bad publicly, imagine how bad it was behind the scenes. Once again, thanks to Cajun's spy abilities, we have basically the entire Operation Fallrot GC in our hands, or at least everything that went on during September 11th, the day STA fell. So you can see here that Jip replied to his own Operation Fallrot message, his last resort. He pinged everyone in the group chat, which includes the following: Cadzilla, Dario, GNZ, IDK Stats, Jip, TCA/Minmax/Graphify, and Smash. Cajun was added later, which is where these screenshots are from. Based on who was online and their involvement in the situation as a whole, I believe the 4 votes for yes were Jip, GNZ, Smash, and Dario. With Cajun not being in the group chat at the time, that means 4 out of 7 members voted for yes, which is a majority. 2 minutes later, they began banning people, officially executing Operation Fallrot. Jip absolutely freaked out when asking them to start banning. I mean, the guy tried fucking pinging himself. Zero remorse or care. He wanted us gone. You can see here Dario is seemingly trying to lie his way out of something, though he was manipulated, as we'll get into momentarily. And then everyone was officially banned. And Jip, the person who tried saying he'd negotiate to help his reputation, who had mountains of messages responding to everything he did, told everyone to leave the negotiation GC. Unbelievable and pathetic. Jip himself even admits that John was right in some ways, but according to Jip, we have already gone too far. He deludes himself into think that if he just keeps pushing, no matter how immoral or dumb or poor or delusional the choices he's making, that eventually he will end up being right, because that's most likely what his ego tells him. They freaked out over someone having access to staff chat and rapidly tried figuring out who it was. I believe he was referring to Histerline here, but he said, good, he's one of those who supported John and Solar's tyranny. The irony of literally admitting to overthrowing and coupping the server and naming the project after the Nazis and then having the audacity to call what you're overthrowing tyranny is insane. Once again, another case of him just throwing people away the moment they disagree with him. And here's the crazy thing. I'm not going to speak so charismatically like Hitler did. He wasn't a great person. The guy is literally comparing his speech, his response to everything after overthrowing the server, to Hitler responding to people. Hitler was an amazing speaker, which is how he got so much power. The fact he's comparing himself to Hitler while in an oddly similar situation is fucking insane. You can see here that even people who were on his side, like GNZ, were telling him he went too far with it, that this all could have been avoided if he just didn't go this crazy with it. And he continues to somehow believe that this will work. Don't be so naive is his response to even his own friend and partner in this project trying to give him a bit of advice. This decision is irreversible. We tried to negotiate so many times and you blatantly ignored it and banned us instead. You made the decision irreversible. not us. It wasn't always irreversible. You made it that way. We have finally banned F10 and the fucking insufferable leeches of the server. They've infested our server bit by bit, member by member. This is a liberation. This is a revolution. How the fuck is F10 involved? This is the current F10 member list. Besides Cation, it was Sam up until September 16th, which was after this. Aki, sure, is sometimes annoying. Does he really even do anything though? And he wasn't even banned anyway. Celix, zero problem with him. He's perfectly normal and reasonable and neutral in almost everything. David, sure, maybe you have a point there. Still, he wasn't even banned, so why mention F10? Hist, he's one of the most inactive people I've ever seen, especially in STA, and rarely contributes to drama ever. Vile, same with him. He barely speaks in STA anymore. Rexta, same with him. Faceless was a mod who helped with the server. Me was owner who helped for 2 months straight. TC didn't speak there anymore. Only 4 people in F10 were active in STA. Me, Faceless, David, and Celix. And of those 4, only one can have even a bit of an argument for being insufferable, and even then, it's still incredibly inaccurate and insulting. Also, once again, how's the guy calling me and John tyrants, calling innocent people leeches, while saying we infested the server? Jip finally accepts that it'll take time to save STA, but that it somehow is better than the death that me and John will apparently lead STA to. That aged really well. Me and John surely led STA to death, considering that the literal day Jip stole it, STA died. Here we see it's not about morality or what's right, it's about what he's able to get away with, which he basically admitted in the past. Insane and desperate. Honestly, fair point. We weren't banned for causing the biggest chaos on the server. The plan to ban us had existed for a full week prior. This was planned and premeditated. It's crazy to see stuff just slowly fall apart. Even his own allies such as TCA are asking him what he did, why he's being jumped. Apparently he didn't want to unban the rest. Not sure how Toaster, N4 Faces, Hexagon, and Omar caused so much chaos that they have 0 chances of returning, especially when just the day before he was saying I single-handedly was the causation of the server's collapse, but whatever. I kind of gave up on trying to figure this guy out at the beginning of this video. Jip then began putting pressure on the TCA for not writing a blog post about presumably the whole situation to help defend himself and Jip. He then brags about how he was able to write out so much so quickly. Even when on the brink of collapse, he still can't appreciate his friends even wanting to help him at all. You can see here that by banning literally everyone who cared about the server, they have no one to actually save them from the situation. I have no idea what TCA is on about here, but he wasn't there for everything, so it's fair. N4 is not bad press at all. He's very intelligent and well spoken, is probably the only person who had a chance at saving Jip at all, though his reputation in STA isn't the best. N4 did not single-handedly convince everyone Jip is a dictator. Everyone did that, and even then, we did not convince them Jip is a dictator. We simply showed them what Jip was and what he was doing. This wasn't us convincing people, it was us spreading public news, and N4 was involved in that much less than the rest of us. What Jip did this last hours is nothing short of a dictator, says his own defender. I wonder why people are complaining. Maybe because they executed the only people who actually moderated the server. You all did this to yourselves. This is Jip's STA team, just people asking each other to do the work for them. Jip asks GNZ to be a better admin. TCA asks someone to warn Sky. Smash doesn't even know what rule it is. I really do feel bad for them here. It's just so much to deal with, and it's very clear none of them actually wanted to do this or deal with it anymore. They were dragged into Jip's mess, and now they had to deal with the aftermath of the thing that Jip caused. Here's Jip once again seemingly pressuring TCA, not to mention that what he's pressuring him to isn't even true. We finally got control. The server is in the worst place it's ever been in. As GNZ said, the members are against us right now, bro. They said everything they could, to which TCA added on, GG, it's over. Jip continued to delude himself, trying to convince the others that somehow, no matter what they do, enduring would work. Don't accept your mistakes, don't try fixing it, keep doing what put you into this horrible situation, and somehow it will fix itself. As if it wasn't bad enough, Jip began referring to all of us as cancers, before saying that time will tell, time will be the best judgment. Time in fact was telling. It was telling them that this miserably failed. He apparently wanted a war now. Me and John, along with our allies, versus Jip-led STA versus SU. For some reason, obvious path was being dragged on all this. Who owns SU? Once again, blinded false confidence that somehow he'll win. Somehow through all of this was still working. Apparently, Jip now planned to expose us. Instead of writing a response, an exposure seemed to be implied. I believe from here, Jip either went to sleep or spoke somewhere else. Regardless, as Jip said, time will tell. And time did tell. Overnight, SH proved his power. Jip was wrong. No matter how much he endures making the wrong decisions, no matter how much he embraces betrayal and immorality, no matter how much he ignores his friends and audience's pleas for response and change, and overnight, he was proven wrong. He had killed STA and in fact paved the road for its replacement. Realizing this, a group chat was made by Cation that included me, Cation, Smash, Jip, GNZ, and John. TCA may have been part of it, but I believe he left several times. I think they noticed that SH was winning and that Jip's endurance strategy was miserably failing. We just had to wait for Jip to get back from school and we'd be able to negotiate. A full day later than when Jip said he would negotiate, Jip finally returned with the most ridiculous proposition ever. Even after the disaster that just ensued, he still wanted us to agree to letting him not only stay as owner, but keeping technical owner. He wanted to focus on merging in the SMP, which is basically exactly the deal we made last time, and you know how that ended up? it brought us right back here, and he apologizes for what he has done, such as cooing and banning people. The guy who was calling us tyrants and banning us the day before now was suddenly sorry once his server collapses and everyone turns against him. Sure, I didn't give up, but their impact is even wider. This clearly shows that the only reason he's apologizing is because he lost. If this had actually worked, he wouldn't have an ounce of sorrow or sympathy or regret. If this worked, he'd be overjoyed, laughing in our faces about how well STA is doing. He is only sorry because he lost. Division and hate is counterintuitive to our common goal. Let's put aside our grudges. He did this. He started this. Everything that happened that was decisive and hateful was because of him, started by him. All grudges were his. All of this was because of him, and now he has the audacity to ask us to agree to stop being hateful, even though it is all him. You let me keep tactical ownership, and I would only be an admin. I literally have no fucking reason to believe you. You agreed to that exact thing last time, and you ended up overthrowing the server because you hated not having as much power as you wanted. No one is falling for this shit again. It is literally the definition of history repeating itself. You've broken everyone's trust with you, and me and John have no reason to believe you, ever again. As John continued rejecting his propositions while I was sleeping, Jip continued trying to bargain and negotiate, very desperately I may add. However, no matter what he did, he still wanted to hold on to ownership in some way, and even then, he wanted us to somehow agree to these new staff members retaining their positions, and even worse, he wanted to share technical ownership on a shared account. Do you know how risky that is? If one person holds technical ownership and the other person gets hacked, ownership is safe. If all three hold technical ownership and only one gets hacked, the server's fucked. Not to mention, me and John could just steal the server if we wanted to. Not like we would, but you know who would? Because their words mean nothing? Jip. He could just log us out, take over the server, and then say we were deposed of owner because we ruined the server. History repeats itself, and it always will. And the absolute worst part that really solidifies my belief that Jip was doing this just to save his reputation, and the server that he killed was asking for Statistics Horizon to be deleted. And that is what really solidified my rejection of this deal. John and I were on the same page without even needing to talk about it. When I finally woke up, John and I discussed this in private. I believe we spoke about it a couple more times elsewhere, but our decision was about 75% sure no matter where we discussed. We didn't want to let go of SH and kill it, and as we discussed more, we eventually decided that no matter what, we didn't want STA. With our decision made, John made an announcement in Statistics Horizon officially rejecting Jip's offers of negotiation to any extent. We need a new fresh start. No matter who gets STA or how much we try, STA is too far gone, and in all honesty, it always was and has been. It's better to start fresh, and that's what Statistics Horizon is. Me and John continued speaking with GNZ for a bit while Jip wasn't active or wasn't responding. We solidified our stance and argued for a while, which you can pause and read if you'd like. However, it was certain. We were not returning to STA, even if we would receive technical ownership. Our time in STA was done, just like Jip wanted, and I hope he's happy with the result of removing us. If things weren't bad enough for STA, TCA, their biggest merger, officially unmerged. STA was in absolute ruins. Negotiations were rejected, Jip was losing mergers, losing support from members, and losing support from staff, and worst of all, he was most likely losing confidence in himself. His unbreakable ego had finally been shattered. When Jip woke up, Cajun laid it out plain and simple. GNZ backstabbed him, TCA left, everyone left, STA lost 80 members in just over 24 hours. It was over. Jip lost. While me and John spoke to each other on whether to accept Jip's proposition or not, it seemed the others were as well speaking in the Operation Fallrot group chat, and it wasn't looking good. Jip was beginning to crack, and even then, he was still trying to hold on to something. Also, I just have to tackle TCA's statement here. This power struggle wouldn't have happened if John and Solo did something about the several noticeable issues about the server. There is no situation where we were to blame. Jip forcibly overthrew and stole the server. He majorly exaggerated issues and put the blame on us in order to steal power back. The power struggle started when Jip stole the server back. We are not to blame for what Jip did at all. This started because of Jip. Just because Jip doesn't like how we managed the server doesn't mean he's justified in cooing, overthrowing, or causing a power struggle, and it definitely doesn't mean we are to blame for it. Jip seemed to want to go to war in some way. He thought that even with the little advantages he had right now, he'd eventually come out on top. We would still not be fucked. The fact he says he's not doing all this without having technical owner just says about everything I need to know. He'd end up just stealing the server again. The only reason he needs technical ownership is to take it back if he wants to. I have zero trust in him nor respect for him because of the things he's done and most importantly the fact he does not want to change. Now catching back up at the present, like I said earlier, it was over. Me and John had rejected his negotiations in any form. Even if we got technical ownership, we don't want staff in STA, nor do we want to return to STA. We are both done with STA, as was the entire community. Even GNZ knew that by this point. It's funny, making a Jip SMP/Jip server while Jip takes a slight step back from trying to breach power in STA is exactly what I proposed in the beginning, the exact thing that presumably led to this. Ironic that we end up exactly in this situation, except even worse. Jip's reputation is gone, he has no power in a big stat server, everyone knows what he did and who he is, and even his old friends don't want to deal with this anymore. With this inevitable truth abundantly clear, Jip seemingly archived or at least gave up on the Operation Fallrot group chat. And then it finally happened. STA was dissolved fully. Jip lost and finally accepted that he had lost. STA was over. The 2-year project, if not 3 to 4 including USOS, had been destroyed in just 2 days, all because Jip wanted power. I will say that I do appreciate Jip apologizing, though I have a hard time believing it's honest. Regardless, I very much appreciate and respect him for giving everyone our server link and wishing us luck. I do wish Jip the best for the future and hope he can move on and improve from this. Before I get into the outro of this video, there are a couple of things I want to go over first. First off, a lot of people were manipulated into participating in this. G&Z, TCA, Dario, Smash, and most likely more were all mentally drained and dragged into this drama by Jip. Dario himself, who was in the Operation Fallrot group chat, admitted that he was manipulated into participating in this. He said that he believed it was going to be some sort of exposal document, not something this drastic. He also said that the others were manipulated too, such as Kadzilla, G&Z, TCA, and probably more. If I had to guess, Jip probably told all of them that me and the moderators were ruining STA. Dario, Kadzilla, and Naughty Stats, who are not active in STA, believed it. After all, why would Jip lie, and who would have the balls to blatantly lie like that? I also don't think any of them expected it to be this drastic, nor did they want to really get involved or fight. The bottom line is that they were manipulated, and I presume the majority of them are sorry. Whatever you do, please don't send hate to any of these people, especially Smash, Dario, G&Z, TCA, Kadzilla, IDK Stats, Hunting, and others. They were either manipulated, minimally involved, if involved at all, did not grasp the situation fully, or they regret their actions. And even if they didn't, for example, like Jip likely not regretting it, that does not justify unwarranted and excessive hate. We should try to be fair, objective, and open-minded about this. This is a video objectively presenting information and debunking claims made towards me, my friends, and others, while also publicizing information I think people should see. If you're gonna do anything, you should critique Jip and any others that you feel need to be critiqued. No one should be hated on or blamed unless they actually did something. On to the next thing. I'm not trying to make any grand claims, but I believe it's only right that I share this just in case it ends up amounting to something. It all just seems a bit odd to me, and it'd feel weird to withhold this information. There's a lot of cases where Jip seems to tie himself to some sort of Nazism. Now, I'm not putting this claim out there that Jip is a neo-Nazi or something. I will let you come to conclusions yourself. I'm just putting forward information. In October of 2023, Jip made some sort of alternative swastika as profile picture. Feel free to do your own research on it, but it seems to be somehow a niche and even worse version of the Nazis. The fact he even knows what this is somewhat alarming in the first place, but the fact he made his profile picture is even worse. He even was aware it was a Nazi logo, as seen in the screenshot where he says, "Is bro freaking out at a Nazi logo?" According to Cation, he only apologized after being ridiculed. He also apparently deleted messages of it to hide the evidence or something. When referring to a speech that he was going to make to save STA's reputation, he spoke about how he won't speak as charismatically as Hitler did. Why mention that unless you have some similarity to him? It's like he relates to Hitler's situation in overtaking a country. I see no other reason to mention how your speech would be similar to Hitler at all, especially when a prominent trait about Hitler was how good of a speaker he was. He hired someone onto his staff team who said Heil Hitler, and I will say that Jip did condemn this, but he still did hire this person in the end. However, I don't think this really has any substance. Jip didn't say it, and in fact told the person to not say it after that. It's not fair to use that against him. The biggest thing is Operation Fallrot. In the 1940s, the German military, led by Adolf Hitler, had an operation named Fallrot, which was their plan to invade France. Jip named his Coup of STA after the Nazi army's overtaking of France. Fallrot is such a niche combination of words, it almost guaranteed it was named after that. With Jip being aware of some sort of alternative niche swastika that is representative of Nazism, but even worse somehow, a logo and ideology that most people have absolutely no idea about, making in his profile picture, hiring someone to his staff team who said Heil Hitler, comparing himself to Hitler when referring to his own speech, and naming his coup after a Nazi project led by Hitler, it all just seems like a bit too much of a coincidence to me. However, I'm not here to make accusations, I'm here to put information forward and let you all draw your own conclusions. Before our conclusion, I did a little interview with a couple of people involved in the situation. I'll now go over our minimal conversations and put the screenshots into the video. Faceless, who was demoted and banned and heavily involved in the situation and creation of the new server, had some very insightful and bold comments about the situation. John, in his tired, slumbered state, spoke like a shortened ChatGPT summary, though I can't refute anything he said. I strongly agree with what Toaster said, but there's not much I have to add on to it. N4 makes a very good point about how what Jip did is everything you don't want to do as an owner. The rest of it I strongly agree with, so feel free to read it if you'd like. Cajun basically just summarized the situation. I got nothing to really add on to that. I strongly agree with everything Omar said, and I do recommend you pause and give it a read, as I do with Hexagon, as him and Omar both had the longest messages. Speaking of Hexagon, I also did have a 21-minute voice call interview with Hexagon about the situation. However, that is far too long to put into this video, considering it's already movie length. So if you'd like me to post that as a separate video or something, just let me know in the comments and I'll post it if you want. Now, before we finally end this video, some things did happen afterwards. So, in his own personal server, the Jip SMP server, Vipers said, Jip, everyone doesn't like you. Jip responded, low-key kinda ironic since my attempt was to remove the same people that has made you mad multiple times. I do respect you, Jip. The backstabbing is kinda amusing, makes me understand more about human nature. The fucking irony of the person who backstabbed everyone being amused at people holding him accountable. Accountability and backlash isn't backstabbing or betrayal. Backstabbing and betrayal is what you did. Ridiculous. Flash forward to September 15th, I believe. According to Smash, making evidence public is now framing. I offered to take a step back for both sides and live in harmony. They refused. You only offer that once your server died. Once you realize no one is on your side because you fucked up so badly. And your offer was for us to fucking delete our server. That's not us living in harmony. That is a blatant lie. He's also saying here that he's able to easily make a video exposing our drama-causing nature and immaturity. Let me say this to you, Jip. That is a battle you will not win. I've spent hours each day for the past couple days since this happened working on this video. And if you want to falsely paint me in the wrong here, I will gladly do all of this again and again and again until you genuinely apologize and accept you are in the wrong here or give up. Because you are in the wrong, and I firmly believe that, and I will keep fighting until everyone knows what you have done. I'm telling people what has happened objectively. I'm not letting you lie and expose me and my friends for nothing. I'd also like to mention that it's not them exposing you, it's me. This is a project I'm doing that I've worked on entirely by myself. All screenshots have been organized by me, all writing has been done solely by me, all editing has been done by me, the thumbnail, all planning, all motivation, it was all done by me. And I know it sounds like I'm bragging like crazy right now, but I'm just saying that if you're gonna try fighting back, don't get people involved who aren't involved. This is my video, so don't think that other people are working on this too and get mad at them. It's also not an exposing video. As I just said, I'm making information public. We only split it because you lost. The only reason you want to bail out of this and go our separate ways is because you so miserably lost and killed your own server and backstabbed so many people in such a short period of time. You made those choices, not me, and the consequences of those choices is not my responsibility to stop. It's also ironic and funny that him wanting to settle the drama is only because he doesn't want to deal with it anymore, not because he's sorry, and him saying, I know bro, was the last thing he said in the server. It is abundantly clear that Chip's not willing to put the effort in to fix this and still somehow believes that us rejecting his negotiations or publicizing what he did is us being in the wrong. So let me tell you, Jip, as my formal response to what you said, I am going to publicize this. You cannot stop that. You did bad stuff and messed up big time, and that is going to have consequences. You saw last time how trying to silence stuff, run from it, frame us as villains, and all of that only ended up making the situation worse. If you want to go through all that again, then so be it. I'm up for that. I don't want to do that, but if you're going to falsely paint me and my friends as bad people, then I'm going to fight back, and chances are they will too. They went all out to destroy everything I have. It's literally what you did to us. How fucking hypocritical can you be? How can you still see yourself as a victim after all of this? They will continue to describe me in a bad light. We are publicizing what you did. You did this to yourself. No one's describing you in a bad light. We are showing people what you did. If you didn't want that to happen, then you shouldn't have done everything you did. That is the most basic principle of consequences of your actions. And then Jip sent me a friend request. Forgive? Yes. Forget? No. Fuck no. The shit you pulled isn't something small enough to simply be forgotten. Accountability and consequences are a part of making mistakes, and the mistakes you've made are large enough that they will last. I just want peace. That's what we asked for countless times. Once again, you did this to yourself. I'm really not sure what to think of his apology. I feel like if this had succeeded, he wouldn't be sorry. He wouldn't care about the mess or the yap against me or the drama or anything. Change requires time, and I don't feel like 10 to 11 days is enough time for him to change and reflect it enough to warrant this drama simply being forgotten. I just simply ask for the end of this drama. Call me crazy, but when I don't respond, he pings me again and asks to just end the drama. Maybe he only cares about the drama ending and not the actual apology. Unsure. I don't want people to see me as a neo-Nazi. I've made no claims on you one way or another in that regard. I've simply publicized information and screenshots of things you have said and done. If people believe you're one because of your actions, that's not my problem, it's yours, because you did it. I'm very hesitant on accepting any apology from Jip for a multitude of reasons. Firstly, you've seen previously how, when he tries peacefully negotiating and apologizing, he's still subtly, if not blatantly, shit-talking us in the Operation Fallrot group chat. It's very well that he could be putting on another front here when trying to negotiate and talk with me in order to end this drama and save his reputation. Secondly, I'm genuinely unsure if he is sorry at all. I truly believe there's a possibility he's only doing this to save his reputation because his server and standing in the community got ripped to shreds in 2 days. Would he have apologized if the overthrowing had succeeded and SH had failed? I highly doubt it. Don't forget he also said, I don't fucking want to deal with this, bro. It's very possible to me that he's simply apologizing because he doesn't want to deal with the backlash anymore. Thirdly, not enough time has simply passed for him to sufficiently change. At the time this conversation took place, it had been 10 to 11 days after the incident. That's maybe enough time to be sorry, but not enough time to genuinely fully change. He does say he will seek improvement, so maybe he knows he has things to work on. Fourthly, even if he is sorry, I still struggle to believe that he has changed or will maintain any changes made to himself. Back in May, he made promises about being a man of his words and only functioning as a moderator. He promised to not breach power as technical owner, and the lies he made resulted in a movie-length video being made on him. I struggle to believe that his words have any honest or truthful weight to them. I struggle to believe that he won't go back on his words in the future. Don't forget, this is the guy who compared himself to Hitler when talking about speeches. I really have a hard time being able to believe anything he says, even if it comes across as genuine. He has historically lied and backstabbed us. I don't have any doubts that he would do it again, especially when his reputation is at stake. In conclusion, Jip destroyed his own server. Be wary if you're accepting Jip's apologies to any capacity. You've heard it from me, you've heard it from all of us. You've seen the screenshots. He framed me as the sole destroyer of all of STA, painting me as a villain and disregarding my mental health. He manipulated his friends into doing his dirty work with him, if not for him. He broke his promise and lied multiple times about the deal me, him, John, and several others had. He only tried apologizing and negotiating when his reputation and server were on the brink of true collapse. Jip has an ideology and stance on things that says if anyone disagrees with him, they are a leech, they are wrong, and it's better to ban them than even try listening to them. If this coup succeeded, he would have no remorse, he would have no regret, he would not be sorry or claim he's sorry. If this coup succeeded and we all lost, he would be perfectly happy with everything he did. He would not have an ounce of regret or sympathy for us. He would not care, and he would continue to justify what he did. He claims he's sorry and has spent time reflecting, but tell me, Jip, if you had succeeded in framing me as a fucking loser, stealing the server from your friends, and his statistics horizon was never made, would you be sorry? Would you be reflecting on anything right now? Or would you be absolutely overjoyed, calling us leeches and cancers to your server, continuing to justify what you've done? I struggle to believe that if his coup and overthrowing of the server hadn't failed, he would still be sorry. I struggle to believe that he's not only sorry, because his reputation was absolutely annihilated. And that is my current stance on Jip. And that is why, even if he was truly sorry, he's done far too much for me to just call it a day and forget about it. I will forgive, but I will not forget. I hope you are happy with your decisions, Jip, and I hope you use them to learn in the future. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I spent about 3 days collecting screenshots and writing this, spending multiple hours each day on that. Narration took a couple days to do, though I did kind of split it up, like I did the first half of it on one day, then edited, then the next half, and now I'm doing the final half, even though that's not a half, that's 1/3 anyways. The editing was just fucking brutal. That shit took days. I was losing my mind. Like, bro, damn, I thought this was gonna be like a 20-30 minute video and it's fucking 2 hours long. Anyways, I can't help but plug myself and let you know that I will be posting some more stuff on this channel. There is hopefully going to be a video coming out within the next week or two. Beyond that, Stats Community Squid Game is still happening. I do have to rewrite the ending, but that's easy and will happen later this year, so don't worry about that. Episode 1 will be releasing in October or November if I had to guess. I was hoping for a September release, but as I'm sure you can tell, shit happened. And then I wanted an October release, but man, I'm drained from this. 2 hours, bro. I'm not doing this again. But either way, stay tuned for that. It's going to be really cool. Overall, I'm going to miss STA to some extent, as will many other people, but Jip's own actions led to its downfall. In just 48 hours, Jip single-handedly dismantled his entire server, and even with so many chances to fix it, he continued not only allowing it to collapse, but led it down the road of failure. It is no one's fault but his own. Once again, please do not send any hate to anyone mentioned in this video. With that, I hope you enjoyed my recap on how STA died in 48 hours because of Jip. 2 years of history gone in 2 days. But in the end, we won. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a good day.